The Iowa Hawkeye women are Big Ten tournament champions. The Hawkeyes, with their second straight Big Ten tournament championship, not Iowa State Buckeye 72, a win game that I desperately needed after what we saw earlier today with the men. We'll talk about it, and you're going to give me your thoughts because here's what happened, folks. I was, of course, at Carver for Iowa, Nebraska, the men earlier, and I missed part of this game because I had to drive somewhere to be able to do this show. I wanted to make sure I made this platform, this outlet for people to celebrate. And boy, what a time to be hosting this show with the Hawkeyes. This is probably the greatest stretch of Iowa women's basketball in a conference tournament over a 3-year period ever. I don't know the history of the conference tournament, how far that goes back. I'd have to look at the record, but this is the third straight trip, Iowa's third straight trip to the championship game and their second straight championship. And boy, doing so in dominating fashion. I would guess this is one of the most dominating Big Ten championship games in the history of the Big Ten tournament. And of course, it's the first ever in Minneapolis. I think that helps Iowa. Certainly, it helped Iowa having the crowd there. But Iowa, I mean, look, this team plays well away from home, something the men haven't always done. But boy, the women treated the Target Center like it was Carver North, so to speak, and just dominating all the way around. What a first half. And we can talk about Caitlin Clark in a minute, but the team in general, that first half, just incredible, putting 61 points on the board in that first half. I don't have the official stats in front of me yet, the official box score yet from the university, but Iowa, I believe, shot near 80% from the field. Is that even possible? I believe that number is accurate. Again, we're awaiting the official box score from the university. Caitlin Clark finished the night with another triple-double, 30 points for Caitlin, 17 assists, and 10 boards, 9 of 17 from the field. That is the most impressive part about this, folks. What a day for Caitlin, and she only took 17 shots. That's not that much. In a game where Iowa scored 105, you see her effect on the game where she's able to just shoot 17 shots, just 5 more than Monica Sinano, her counterpart. And yet, the Hawkeyes score a $105 and win by 32 against Big Ten runners-up Ohio State. I'm here for the next hour taking your calls, taking your chats, your questions, your comments, whatever the case may be. And look, if people want to talk more about the men, we can do that. But let's try to focus our attention on the positive, which is this performance from the Iowa women. The phone line is open. A couple different ways to call in. As always, our actual call-in Iowa Smokehouse call-in line is open, 515-635-1601. 515-635-1601 is the number to call. And then you can also call by means of StreamYard. And the link is, I'll throw it back up in the chat. It's in the description below as well. The link next to where it says join the show. I'll throw it in the live chat again here for anybody who wants to take part in the conversation. Don't feel like you have to, talk eloquently. We're just Hawkeye fans celebrating a huge victory and a repeat. That's hard to do, man. I tell you, I have a lot of people don't know this on here about me. I'm a huge tennis fan, and I used to watch tennis maybe as much as I watch football and basketball, probably more so actually. And, you're always talking about how hard it is for individual players to repeat. Obviously, the same is true in golf. But it's hard as a team to repeat, especially in these conference tournaments. In the NCAA tournaments, obviously difficult. But when you're in a one-and-done format, it is very, very hard. And that's why we've seen some dynasties in college football, but we've seen a lot more dynasties in the NBA. And over time, we've seen dynasties in the MLB, etc. But when you have a one-and-done format, it's tough. So, look, you got to congratulate Iowa. Give Ohio State credit. They played their tails off yesterday, and I don't know. I think it's fair to say they probably ran out of gas today, had overcome a 24-point deficit yesterday to get here, to get to the Big Ten championship. They were not coming back from 20 down today. Certainly, we're not going to come back from, what was the largest lead in this game, 38. And then the Hawkeyes, again, end up winning by 33. I'll give you some stats here before we get to our call-in line. Hawkeye shot 62% from the field. That indicates that they actually didn't shoot real great in the second half because they shot astoundingly well in the first half. 62% from the field for the game, 9 of 18 from three. They didn't make 10 threes. He scored 105 points and made just 9 threes, but shot 50% from three, 83% from the free throw line, and out-rebounded Ohio State 45-29. Turned the ball over 16 times, the one bugaboo stat that could hurt them come tournament time. But again, when you're dominating a team like this, it's hard to nitpick. And we can talk about their March Madness aspirations. Certainly that, I'm sure that's going to come up into the conversation. But this is a huge accomplishment, guys. It's just a massive accomplishment to repeat and get to the championship for 3 straight years, and to win 2 straight is just huge. Let's get to our first caller of the day, our Iowa Smokehouse call-in line. James, welcome back to the show.
How you doing? It's good to see you back. And at least we're better this time. We're a little bit happier. But first off, I gotta say, I thought the real MVP said Aaliyah Boston was better.
Well, Derrill MVP is waiting in the queue, so we're going to get his take here.
I'm just messing with him. It's all love. I'm not really trying to hate. I'm just poking fun at him because I know he's SEC.
I wonder if here's my prediction. I'm guessing our SEC fan, our Derrill MVP, is going to call in and say he takes that back and he believes that Caitlin Clark is the best player in the country. Although South Carolina did win the SEC championship today by double figures, and Aaliyah Boston, she had 18.7 boards. So good performance for her, but not what Caitlin did.
Yeah, but I'm not trying to hate on that either. But they beat an unranked Tennessee team. We beat the number 14 team in the nation by like 40. So I think there's a little bit difference in that. But anyways, how do you like? You think I think there should be a 1 seed? I'm going to say maybe they can put Indiana over them because Indiana beat us once and then we beat them the other time. But Indiana lost to Iowa State and we just beat them by like 30 something. What's your thoughts on that?
So let's think about the 1 seeds right now. And I'm going to go ahead and pull up, is it Charlie Cream, who does bracketology for ESPN. He's got Iowa, I believe, as his first 2 seed. So that's prior to this win. He's got them as his first 2 seed. And on the 1 line, Charlie Cream has South Carolina, Indiana, Stanford, and Virginia Tech. Virginia Tech,
they won.
They won today, beat Louisville in the ACC championship. So I don't see them moving. I don't think what Iowa did is any more. It's more impressive, but it's not enough to move Virginia Tech down a line. And even though Virginia Tech is ranked below Iowa in the AP poll, according to Charlie Cream, he does not expect the committee to look at those 2 teams the same way. So he's got Stanford, Virginia Tech, South Carolina, and Indiana. I mean, Indiana, the conversation about Indiana is valid. Does Iowa beating Ohio State today in the fashion that they did, is that enough to propel them ahead of Indiana? Let's remember they did split with Indiana. So although Indiana didn't win the Big Ten tournament championship, you can say they won the regular season championship outright, and they split with Iowa. So my guess is no, they're not going to be a 1 seed. I wouldn't rule it out, but I don't see them jumping Virginia Tech. I don't see them jumping. Obviously, they're not going to jump Stanford. And then let's see, not going to jump South Carolina. And then as far as Stanford is concerned, what's Stanford doing right now? James, are you aware?
I'm not 100% sure. I don't follow Pac-12. It's kind of past my bedtime when they play a lot of times. So
okay. So let's look. It looks like Stanford actually lost to UCLA a couple of days ago. But again, this Charlie Cream prediction is after that. And my guess is that Stanford and South Carolina are safe. So it probably comes down, and I think Virginia Tech is safe as well. So it probably comes down to Iowa or Indiana. And again, looking at the 2 resumes, James, probably pretty similar. They split head-to-head. One won a tournament championship, one won a regular season championship. I would probably give the nod to Indiana simply because they won more games this year. They have a better overall record, a better conference record, but it's close. I would think it'd be close.
For sure. And one thing too, like you obviously being the higher 2, you play the lower 1. So I think that's always a bigger factor. If we get the higher 2, we at least get the lower 1. My question is because last year they lost in the second round. I'm not saying they're going to do this year, but what would you consider a successful season? Like how far do you think they have to get for it to be considered? Obviously, if they won it all, it'd be a successful season. That's not what I'm saying. But like, how far do you think they have to get for it to be like? I would say at least like Elite 8, Final 4, but Elite 8 at least. I think.
I mean, the ceiling. I mean, obviously, if they're a 2 seed, they're projected to go to the Elite 8, right? I mean, that's how the seed works out. But I think if you get to the Elite Eight, you can call it a success. The Sweet 16 is going to be, it's going to make some people happy because they understand how hard it is to get there, and they understand the men haven't been there since 1999. But yeah, this team is set up for a deep run. So I mean, right now, Charlie Cream's got Iowa in the same section as Virginia Tech, which would lend me to believe that he's got Virginia Tech as his fourth seed. And I mean, I haven't watched much Virginia Tech. I don't know if you have, James, but there's not.
I watched their last game, the one they just beat Louisville.
There aren't many teams in this country right now that I've seen, and based on their overall resumes, besides probably South Carolina, that I don't think Iowa can beat. I think they can beat any of those teams. There aren't teams out there that have proven to be invincible, and South Carolina wasn't real dominating today. Now, maybe they'll go to the tournament and just destroy everybody, but they won by 16 today against an unranked Tennessee team. So we'll see. Would I like Iowa's chances against the Gamecocks? Probably not, but I certainly think the Elite Eight would make it a successful season. Final Four would make it a great season, make it to the championship game. You got a chance to make history.
And one more thing, or a couple more things. First off, Monica and McKenna Warnock, I'm happy for them, to get this at least out the way from their last game. So for them, it's big, and it's also really cool to see everybody play like Taylor and Shate Weathering and JD Onfi. Like, it's cool to see all of them get a chance to play because you don't know, like, if they. I'm not saying they ever won't, but it's just cool as at that young, at least to get an opportunity to play because you don't know how many opportunities you can get at least for now. So.
They got a lot of young players behind those starters. And again, with Warnock leaving, with Sonano leaving, with
does Molly Davis have a year? I think we talked about this. I think she does, but I don't know if she's going to use it. She has not a COVID year, but I don't know if she's going to use it.
Does she have an extra year?
Yeah, she has 4. She has 4 on the Iowa website. This is her 4th year on the Iowa website, so she should have a.
Okay. If that's the case, then she would. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know what her plans are. But my point is that, they're at least losing Sonano and Warnock. And after those two, they got a lot of young people. And Hannah Stolke is going to be a starter next year. But after her, someone else has got to play. And, O'Grady's, can she step up? Edgar's still going to be here, we assume. Maybe some people will transfer. Taylor McCabe, will she step up? Well, Jada Giamfi, I mean, we haven't seen her much. She played a little bit today. Shatea Wettering, who played earlier in the year and then got in today. Yeah, a lot of young bodies, a lot of opportunities for playing time next season.
For sure. It's going to be interesting to see what we get. And is that this weekend or next weekend, the selection show? That's next weekend, right? Still? Yeah, because it wouldn't be tonight. They would have on tonight, so it's probably next weekend as well, right?
I don't even believe the Big 12 has played their championship yet.
Yeah, so no, I'm not sure. But
they play. Yeah, they play on the 9th. So yeah, it'd be after that.
Cool. So all right, we'll see where they'll be at, and hopefully we can make a run and we get at least 2 games at home. We know that, so that's gonna at least be a big thing. And hopefully people go out to the game and support. Obviously, they supported really well in Minnesota, and it was cool to see Luca there to support them as well in Minneapolis. That was also very cool. But hopefully we can get a good crowd, and I'm interested to see what the real MVP says about the Aaliyah Boston situation. So
sounds good, James.
Yeah,
appreciate your calls.
You too.
All right, folks. The phone line is open, 515-635-1601. Sometimes when 2 people call at the same time, neither one of them get through. We had a couple people trying to call here a little bit ago, but the Iowa Smokehouse call-in line is open, 515-635-1601, 515-635-1601. Let's move to, let's see here. Thank you for calling Iowa Postgame here from the Hawkeye of the Storm. Who's on the line? All right, nobody there. Let's move on to Drill MVP. Drill MVP, how you doing, sir?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good until I was completely called out by the last caller. Jeez Louise.
Hey, you got some notoriety on this show. That's a good thing, James.
Yeah, I guess. I've been opening myself up for criticism, Corey.
Yeah.
I'm disappointed. I'll be honest. I'm disappointed. I said I would win by 35 plus, and they only won by 32. Disappointing, Corey.
And they blew a 38-point lead, your MVP.
Well, I don't. I mean, they didn't blow the lead, but they got rid of some of the margin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What did you think? I'm assuming you watched this whole game.
Honestly, after the first quarter, I turned it off. I went to the Pac-12 game and some other games because it was like the Georgia TCU football national championship, where there was so much toward one side you can't analyze it. I mean, at a certain point when the margin becomes so big, it becomes meaningless. Like if Iowa wins by 38 or 32, does it really matter that much? I mean, Iowa from the jump was the better team. They had the best player on the court. They out rebounded, they out physical, they out hustled Ohio State. Ohio State was worn out because of Indiana. There's just not a whole lot to say in terms of the specific game itself after the first quarter, in my opinion.
Drill MVP, hold that thought. I know you're a regular on this show. I've got to give a plug to our sponsor real quick, so just hang tight here. Want to thank Iowa Smokehouse. I've talked about them at length, but again, they're sponsoring our Iowa women's basketball postseason coverage as well, in addition to their sponsorship of our Iowa men and our show with Coach Close. Check out iowasmokehouse.com. And you ladies out there, if your hubby likes meat, what guy doesn't like meat? Maybe consider giving him a March Madness gift. Go to iowasmokehouse.com. Use that code Hawkeye for 15% off. Again, that's the code Hawkeye for 15% off your order. Tasting is believing with Iowa Smokehouse, and $50 orders get free shipping from our friends down in Albia at Iowa Smokehouse. All right, let's go back to Drill MVP. The one thing Drill MVP I would say as it relates to Iowa and what they did today, that's, I'm not saying you're downplaying what they did. I understand the difference between 38 and 32 is negligible. But one thing that Iowa has done more this year than any year that I can remember, even during the best of the Megan Gustafson era, is they have blown teams out, right? I mean, they have lost games, and they also got blown out by Maryland. But as you know, Drill MVP, there is something to be said in the women's game for when you can dominate teams. And the best teams in the country year in and year out, I'm talking about UConn, South Carolina, Baylor, they blow out teams, right? And a lot of times, and I don't think it's good for the sport, but it is what it is. The best teams in women's college basketball typically blow out inferior opponents. And the fact that Iowa's had a number of blowouts. I mean, think about this win today. They beat Rutgers by like 50. They beat Wisconsin at home by 30. They beat Nebraska on the road by 20. Beat Maryland by double digits earlier in the year. Beat Penn State by 40. Beat Northwestern by 30. Beat Penn State again by 40. I mean, seriously, those are. I know those aren't great teams, but that's what you are supposed to do if you're a top 10, top 5 team. That's what you're supposed to do against inferior opponents. And so that does give them. I'm an Iowa fan, which I am. I am more hopeful about the NCAA tournament this year than ever before. Do I think their defense is great? No. However, their offense is better than it's ever been, which is saying something because they're usually really good on that end of the court. It's better than it's ever been, and it gives them a chance in almost any game.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And I know you all, the last caller, talked about expectations. And I wouldn't just go by the seed line. I would look at the matchups. The 3 seed that Charlie Cream has Iowa in that region is UConn. It's a team Iowa lost to. So if Iowa were to happen to lose to UConn in the Sweet 16, I wouldn't consider that a failure of a season. So it really just depends on the matchups and how far you can go, in my opinion.
What does them losing in the regular season have to do with losing to them in the tournament?
It doesn't have anything to do with it, but it's a data point that needs to be taken into account. Hey, these two teams played one another, and UConn won. I mean, it's evidence.
They lose again. If they lose again, then that's even more frustrating, isn't it?
Well, yes, but I mean, it's when you're frustrated with losing to UConn, you're an elite program.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. But again, if we're talking about expectations, we're talking about Iowa being, I mean, they've been in the top 10 most of the year. What were they up to 4 or 5 in the country at one point? They may be 4 or 5 in the country on Monday with this tournament championship. They're already 7th.
They should be. I think they should be top 5.
Yeah. So, I mean, isn't the expectation when you get that high, isn't the expectation competing for a Final Four?
I think, I didn't say they can't. I'm just saying you never know with the matchups. It's all about the matchups.
Oh, absolutely. Listen, they could lose in the second round. I hate to say that. They did it last year. I think this team is better than it was last year, but this team last year won the Big Ten championship and the Big Ten tournament championship last year, and they lost to Creighton. Matchups are everything in March, whether we're talking about the men or the women. You're absolutely right.
Right. Here's the net rankings for the teams. Indiana is 5, Iowa is 6, and Virginia Tech is 9 in the women's net rankings. And that's for games through March 4th. Virginia Tech, they've recently, within the last month or two, they've been NC State on the road, Florida State, Duke at home, North Carolina on the road. So they've played a lot of quality teams. They've been hot as of recently, so they are a capable and dangerous team that could make the Final Four. Virginia Tech had a somewhat slow start to the season, but they've really picked it up as late. I believe they're the best team in the ACC, and they took care of business against Duke. They took care of business against Louisville, so they're a great team.
Which is saying something because the ACC is always strong.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, they've kind of surprised. I mean, they've surprised me. Again, I haven't watched a whole lot of Virginia Tech basketball, but you look at their resume, it's impressive. And you're right. We're talking about matchups and we're talking about head to head, but the net rankings do matter in the women's game as well. So we'll see. I mean, the committee, typically the bracketologists, I don't know Charlie Cream's record, but typically these bracketologists know what they're doing. And the fact that Charlie still had Iowa behind Indiana, behind Virginia Tech before today would indicate to me, especially with Virginia Tech taking care of business, regardless, yes, Iowa took care of business. I don't know if there's enough forward movement, but my guess is there's not a huge gap between those two teams.
Oh, no, I don't think there's a huge gap at all. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised to me if Iowa was a 1 and Virginia Tech was a 2. But, Corey, we need to talk about Caitlin Clark. A 30-point triple-double, Corey. Are you kidding me? 30-point triple-double? That's insane.
So my question to you, well, it's not the first time she's done that, but my question to you,
but it's insane.
My question to you, Drill MVP, is who's the best player in the world, or excuse me, best player in the country in women's college hoops?
That's close, but right now I'll give it to Caitlin Clark.
Okay, we change of opinion in the last 24 hours, Drill MVP.
Well, I think my bias towards South Carolina's team success impacted my judgment on individual players. She should be, in my opinion, National Player of the Year. She does more for her team and contributes more to winning for her team than Aaliyah Boston does for South Carolina. And that's not a dig at Aaliyah Boston because she's a great, great player.
Now, let's remember, this is not the NBA. This is not most valuable player. This is National Player of the Year we're talking about. So it is a little different. I'm not trying to,
Yeah, I understand, but she's the best player. If the reward is about being the best player, then she's been the best player.
Yeah. She's not the best prospect, not the best pro prospect, but the best college player.
Well, that's fine. I mean, look at the men's side. I mean, the players who win that aren't always the best pro prospect. I mean, those can be two separate things.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, but what was it? She had 30 points, 10 rebounds, like 18 assists. 18 assists as well. That's
17.
Crazy to me. It wasn't even really close in the assist department. Usually when you have that many points, you're just throwing it up there all the time. But the fact she was able to find open teammates, they were hitting down their shots. I mean, was just a game where they were just clicking on all cylinders. And if they play like this, who knows, Corey? I mean, they could give South Carolina a game if they're playing like this.
Hope you're right. I hope you're right, because if that's the case, then sky's the limit. Now, again, I do wonder defensively if Iowa can match up with someone like Aaliyah Boston. But everybody's going to have to match. If you're playing Iowa, you got to figure out a way to match up with Caitlin Clark. And earlier in the year, I questioned how will Caitlin play against the more athletic, physical teams. I think she's passed the test, and yesterday was a perfect example of that. She is a tougher player than I think she was a year ago. You can argue that she's not mentally any tougher because she gets rattled at times. She maybe allows herself to be provoked. I guess that you could make that argument. I don't know if it's a big problem or not. I think she plays with an edge, and that really helps her. I think there's more positive from that than negative. But she's a tougher player than she was a year ago. And when she's got Gabby Marshall making shots, and when she's got Kate Martin making shots, and when Sinano's going to be Sinano, they're going to be hard to defend against. I mean, it's hard to score 100 points anytime, let alone the Big Ten championship game.
Anytime you score 100 points, regardless of who you're playing, gets impressive in college basketball.
Absolutely.
The bracket, the final thing I'll say is, according to the NCAA website, the bracket will be released at 8 p.m. Sunday, March 12th on ESPN.
Okay, so after the men.
Yep. So we will know who Iowa is playing next Sunday. Iowa should have some few home games, do you think they will sell out, Corey?
Yes.
Looking forward to the crowd and atmosphere of the games. I'll be watching.
Got to drive up here. You got to come up here to Carver, drill MVP.
I'll see if I can make it happen.
That'd be great. Appreciate it, sir. Thank you for calling in.
No problem. Congrats. Back-to-back champions.
Back to back. Thank you, sir. Mr. Ryan calling the Iowa Smokehouse call-in line. Ryan, how you doing, buddy?
I'm a little better than it was a couple hours ago. I tell you what, Lisa Bluter really knows how to bring it. Just a phenomenal, excellent coach. Hall of Famer, no question about it. I cannot say enough of how fun these ladies are to watch. My wife has heard about Caitlin Clark forever. Never really watched a whole lot of games. And she actually argued with me wanting to watch XFL. And I'm like, no, we're watching the Caitlin show. And I said, the thing is, I said, there's YouTube videos of her nailing 3-pointers from the logo, but watch her passing. Her passing is just off the charts. And my wife was smiling ear to ear watching Caitlin and just loved it. And then, of course, when Caitlin got thrown down, she got all mad. It was so funny. She got totally into it. It was a woodshed.
So my question to you, Ryan, is I'll get your opinion on it because you watch the women just as much as I do. My question to you is, do you feel like Caitlin's attitude could be a crutch in a high pressure situation once we hit tournament time, or am I making too much of that?
Well, there will probably be officials looking to tee her up. Now, when you're the superstar, maybe you get a little extra consideration.
I'm not even talking about getting teed up, but I'm thinking more so. I don't think she plays as well angry as some. Like when she gets rattled, sometimes she forces the issue. We haven't seen it a lot. But I wonder, if she is so hard to stop that at some point you got to start poking the bear. If you're an opponent, you're thinking, well, what can we do? Because we're not going to be able to stop her. So can we make her stop herself? That would be, I'm not saying I'm going to do anything dirty if I'm an opponent, but can you get under her skin? You can't. The answer to that question is yes, you can get under her skin.
No question. But then again, I don't know that that's the bear I'd really want to poke too much either, because I think she's just got that Jordan-esque thing about her where the more PO'd Michael Jordan got, the more he made you pay. I just really think Caitlin's just got that instinct. She's got a killer instinct like I've never seen. And she does things that just, who in the world other than Caitlin Clark would, be amongst the league or the national leaders in scoring and assists? Nobody but her.
And she rebounds incredibly well. That was
incredibly
well for her size.
For a person who scores like she does, and someone who never really watches her game. I know one person at work made some comment about her being a ball hog, and I said, well, then you obviously have no clue and never watched her play, because there's no such thing as a ball hog who leads the nation in assists. She's just, her passing is so precise.
The offense runs through her. There are times where I feel like she takes ill-advised shots, but you know what? There are times, Ryan, when I think Steph Curry takes ill-advised shots.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
It's sometimes what great players do, and I'm not saying that she's Steph Curry, but the bottom line is you live with it. I remember Steve Kerr multiple times in big games with Steph Curry. I remember one specific time. I don't know if it was in a regular season game or a playoff game, but Steph Curry launched one from like 35 feet, and Kerr actually went like this as he shot it, and it went in, and Kerr just threw his arms up. Because what are you going to do? And I do that with Clark all the time. Like, she takes a shot, and I'm like, what do you do? Okay, never mind. She made it.
Yeah.
How do you complain about it?
Well, we just have to live with it. And I think most of us are living pretty happy with it. The other thing I just wanted to mention, though, obviously you don't talk Iowa women basketball without talking about Caitlin Clark, but we really have a phenomenal role players around her. you know, Monica's a first team All Big Ten, obviously, but I'm talking more about like your Kate Martins, your Gabby Marshalls, um, Hannah Stolke right off the bench. She's going to be a star. I just, this team is just built. They know their roles very, very well, and what they do very, very well. Unfortunately, they're not going to be a 1 seed. They have 6 losses. They're right solid number 2 seed, and that's fine. We really can make some real hay in the tournament, and I would never ever bet against Lisa Bluter. So, I mean, she really, I just wish Fran had a little more of how Lisa Bluter, because I feel like the men, we've kind of hit our ceiling a little bit. Where with the women, I don't know what is the ceiling.
So you're telling me, listen, this is a women's show, but you're telling me that you think that the ceiling for the Iowa men is second round of the NCAA tournament. You think that's the ceiling?
It doesn't have to be, but I mean, well,
it is either it is.
You
or
were
it
what, 3 years old when they made it to the Sweet 16?
I understand.
I think where I'm kind of going with that. No, I think a Sweet 16 is certainly possible. But I think we're more going with that is,
listen, hey,
we're a 12 loss team. 13
Ryan,
loss
if they
team.
play like they did at Rutgers, at Indiana, home against, I thought they played really well against Iowa State. If they play like they did in those games, they can make the Elite Eight. The men
I agree.
I'm serious. That's legit.
I agree. You got to get there. You got to get there so we can reestablish a new ceiling, I think.
I understand. Yes. And shut up the people and quiet the people who they just latch onto a narrative whenever it's convenient. Like you didn't hear them at all after Iowa. The men won 2 straight. And now today they win 1 game at home. And yes, it's a bad loss, but it's 1 game. The Fran fade. Here we go again. 1 game. They've won 2 of their last 3. How's that a Fran fade? And I understand the frustrations about March. I get it. And I said it after the last season. They need to make the Sweet 16. They need to. And the women need to listen. The women need to make the Elite 8. I mean, they have been considered one of the 10 best teams in the country here for a couple of years. They came up short of the Sweet 16 last year. They need to make the Elite 8, not as badly as the men need to make the Sweet 16. But I want to see Iowa the men have success for a number of reasons. One, to quiet the people who just latch onto a narrative. And listen, if those people, Ryan, don't want to watch, because just don't watch. Like, just don't watch. Why do you complain on social media about it? Why do you even watch? If you're so upset about it, why do you watch?
Well, real quick about the games that you mentioned, one thing was in common in all of those games, and that was typically a very, very aggressive, good Tony Perkins. And when Tony's our best shot of having what I would call a really, really good guard play. Now, Connor's the quarterback, but I'm talking more of your prototypical guards. And in the teams that do well in the NCAA tournament have good guard play and they play defense. And our guards are hit or miss a little bit, and I think our defense is well documented. Therefore, that's really where a lot of that "did we hit our ceiling" comment kind of comes from.
And look, so Ray says, settle down, Corey. We are not going anywhere as long as Fran is our coach. And I guarantee you, Ray was not saying that 3 days ago. All right. Now, maybe he's going to say, well, I've always said that. Okay, fine. But we live in the moment. And if Iowa goes out and wins 2 games in the tournament, they've made the Sweet 16. It's difficult to do, but it's also not as difficult as we're making it out to be. They haven't done it in 24 years. I understand that. But this is a different year. None of these, like very few of these players were part of most of those NCAA tournament losses. It's a different year. So right. I would not be surprised based on matchups. We'll see how they play in the Big Ten tournament. I would not be surprised to see Iowa make the Sweet 16 this season. I also wouldn't be surprised to see them not make the Sweet 16, Ryan.
Well, I mean, Big Ten tournament will dictate that. But right now, I mean, we're a 9 seed maybe. And, if you get by that one, you got the one. with our luck, we'll probably get Houston or Bama or somebody like that. And I just hope we don't play Bama, because I don't think Miller should even be playing right now. That's my opinion. Losing to them would really just stink.
Oh,
but
listen, if they can avoid the 8-9 line, that's what they need to do. They need to avoid the 8-9 line. If you can get to a 7, I think you got a better chance, certainly a better chance winning in that second round. And I think they can get to a 7. I think if they win a couple games in the Big Ten tournament, I think they're a 7. But,
and if they don't get a 7, then I think I'm rooting for a 10.
Oh, yeah. I agree.
You know?
I agree. I agree.
A great showing by the ladies. They made us proud once again, and my hat's off to them. Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan. Appreciate the call. All right, folks, the Hawkeyes winning 105-72, and I apologize for letting that last call become a discussion on the men, but I just look, and it's funny, I get people all the time that claim that I have some bias against Kirk Ferentz and I'm some buddy with Fran McCaffrey. I just call it like I see it, and I see blatant nepotism, inexcusable nepotism with the football program year after year, and honestly, that has translated into a head coach who I don't believe is making the best decisions collectively for the program. I like Kirk Ferentz as a person. I think for the most part, he does what's best for the program, but he's got a huge blind spot. That's the reason why I've been more critical of Kirk Ferentz. It's very simple. There's no bias. There's no agenda. I've been less critical of Fran because I think he treats his players fairly, and he's got 2 sons on the team, and I think he treats those players fairly. Patrick McCaffrey might have been the best player on the court for Iowa today, and Connor McCaffrey has been one of the best players on the court for Iowa much of his junior and senior years. We can actually say both of his senior years because he took an extra year with COVID. Anyways, we can get back on the women, but I very much look forward to the time when Iowa makes the Sweet 16. Will they do it this year? I don't know. I would certainly think the women have a better chance than the men, but I have no reason to think the men can't make the Sweet 16 this year. One game tonight is not going to change my opinion of this team. They're an up and down team. If they shoot the ball well, they got a chance. I think they play better defense away from home, ironically as that seems. So anyways, we can move on. Let's go to our next caller. Thank you for calling our Iowa Smokehouse call-in line. Who's on the line?
Yeah, this is Pat from Minnesota again.
Hey, Pat.
And I was afraid that you'd miss part of that game. And, of course, you said earlier you missed the first half. And I was speechless. I mean, that was the most fantastic half I've ever seen of any men or women's Iowa team. And I am sorry that we got off on a men's discussion there because the Iowa women are just unbelievable. There's no better passer, no better shooter in women's basketball and maybe men than Caitlin Clark. And I had visions of her number 22. There's going to be a 22 banner hanging up in Carver when she leaves. And I got thinking there also was another 22. Now I go way back in history, but there also was a number 22 that was fantastic, and that was Paul Krause, who played. That's when the football team played both ways. He played halfback and safety, and of course he went on the pro football and was everything in pro football. But anyway, just happened to think of that when I was thinking of number 22 banner hanging in Carver, and I think they'll definitely make the Sweet 16, and even if they don't make the Elite 8, which I think they got a good shot at, it's still been a great season no matter what. And the coaching staff for Iowa women are fantastic. And I was looking at next year, as you guys discussed earlier, we're definitely loaded at guard. That's not a problem. And with our tall people, we do have, and actually I'm thinking, Sydney could play forward. Kate Martin could play some forward. And then we've got a lot of height coming back, 6'4", 6'2", 6'3", 6'2". And you've got Jan Jensen, who works probably one of the best coaches, if not the best coach in the country, who works with centers. And we're going to miss Monica. There's no question about that. But we're going to be just fine next year with that group coming back. So I'm not worried about that at all. And I'm so glad the Kentucky person just finally has come around to Caitlin Clark. I watched some of that South Carolina game, and there's no comparison between Boston, what Boston does for her team versus what Caitlin does for our team. That the passes she threw in that game today, and she's done all season, but the ones she threw today were just unbelievable. And I definitely think there's nobody in the country that compares to her for National Player of the Year. So just wanted to get my 2 cents in again, and that's it.
Pat, I appreciate that, and you're absolutely right about next year, and with Jan Jensen and what she does with the bigs, it will be intriguing to see how the other big. I'm intrigued. I think Hannah Stuelke is going to take that next step. My question is, do the other bigs stick around? Does Sharon Goodman stay? Does AJ Ediger stay? What does Addison O'Grady do? Because they're going to play different with Hannah Stuelke. I'm not saying they can't play with traditional big when Stolke's off the court, but if she's going to be the 5, they're going to play different because she is not a post-up center like Monica Sonano or Addison O'Grady. So it will be intriguing to see. And like I say, the other 3 girls I'd say are in the same boat, same bucket with Sonano and how they play. So you're right. A lot of depth at guard, a lot of question marks in the front court, but some real promise there, not only because of Hannah Stuelke and her her upside that we've seen all year, but also because of the coaching.
Well, I was excited that Goodman was, back again this year, and because she obviously missed all last season. I think we had 2 out all last season, but anyway, because she really played well when she was a freshman, and so I had visions of her, really developing into a tremendous center. And I think her leg is still bothering her, so hopefully next year she'll be much better and able to move better. But I'm still not worried. I think we'll be fine. I could see Hannah even. Maybe I guess she does have to play center. She's more used to that, and her moves are for center. But maybe one of these other bigs could play forward too. I don't know, but
I think she can be more of a 4, but I don't know. I mean, I certainly don't have the vision that Jan Jensen does, but the way she runs the court, I think she would be, if one of those other bigs could develop. I'm not saying that she doesn't start at the 5, but to play her and maybe an Addison O'Grady who's developed, or an Edgar or a Goodman side by side and have kind of a Twin Towers look, that could be effective in this day and age of college basketball and how teams play.
Yes. So anyway, that's it for me. And another great show, Corey. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Pat. Appreciate it. All right, we're trucking along here on our Iowa post-game show. And, of course, appreciate everybody being here and for participating. And to our callers who have called our Iowa Smokehouse call-in line, thank you very much. Drill MVP wants to know if they're going to be a show breaking down the bracket. Absolutely. I'll give you some more details on that once we get there. Looking to do a Hawkeye hangout, hopefully with a bracketologist here this next week for the men. And we got the Big Ten tournament starting, so I'll have a preview for the Big Ten tournament here coming up in the coming days as well. DC Glaza, her attitude will, I'm about Caitlin Clark, her attitude will not be a crutch. She is always present and adaptable moment to moment. She knows when to switch it on and off, but it is a fair question. Appreciate that, DC Glaza, and I think that's a fair estimation. Jesse says, Caitlin needs to get on the recruiting trail, get a true center out of the portal for next year, come win a championship with me. Well, again, you can't have 4 bigs sitting, right? But what are the other bigs going to do? If the other bigs don't develop, then I would guess, I mean, they may not all stay anyways, but that's going to be a question mark. And yes, the portal is there for a reason. And boy, what better time to use the portal than when you have a player like Clark that can attract a center. Now, she's also going to maybe drive some people away because of how much she needs the ball. But I mean, again, the 10 assists today, we see her camaraderie, her chemistry with Monica Sonano. I don't know why a big wouldn't want to come here to play. The Iowa's recruited well at that position. So, and Charles, yes, O'Grady at the 5, Stuelke at the 4 could work. I don't know. I don't think O'Grady is ready for that, though. That's the thing. I mean, we're going to see what happens with her development. But if she sticks around, which I have no reason to think she won't, if she can do, she's a big body, and you don't see too many. And I don't mean that in an insulting way. I mean, I'm basketball. She's got an opportunity to be different. She's taller than Sonano. I don't know what Sonano's listed at, but O'Grady's a tall young lady, and she just doesn't develop like we thought she would this year. But I think Stuelke playing like she has infringed on O'Grady's minutes, and we'll see what they do once Sonano is gone and how they approach things. All right, let's go back to our phone line. Let's go back to our Iowa Smokehouse call-in line. Thank you for calling Iowa Postgame here from the Hawkeye of the Storm. Who's on the line?
Hey, Corey. Zach.
Hey, Zach.
Big Ten champs.
Big
Cannot
Ten
complain. Yeah, it's kind of funny watching Caitlin literally run down that last rebound. Like, get the heck out of my way. I'm getting this one.
She is, like I said, yeah, that she's, we know Lisa Bluter values triple doubles, and I understand it's a feat, but really, in all reality, Caitlin just rebounds exceptionally well for a guard and somebody who does everything else so well. Yeah,
and shout out to team at Gabby, 3 of 3, I think, from 3. I think Monica went, 11 of 12 from the field. Folter had 11. Martin, I think, was in double figures. They're, I don't want to say peaking, but if this is the offense that's been basically most of the year. This is a dangerous team, and I know a couple times talked about kind of Clark's attitude in a sense. Last year, or freshman year, with what happened toward the end of the game, I think with Cody McMahon, she probably would have gotten back up in McMahon's face. I think because it was such a blot, she kind of said, "I'm just getting the heck away from this thing."
Well, let me say something about Cody McMahon. If I was her head coach, and maybe I'm not in touch with how these things are handled or should be handled, I would be having a discussion with her after the game, and I would say, I don't want to ever see you smile like that again when we're up by 30. You saw when she had that big grin on her face after being called for a foul. And I understand, it's kind of like I go back to the Brian Ferentz, Spencer Petras moment at Illinois earlier this year when we called out Brian and Spencer for smiling. I would say the same thing to Cody. It's inappropriate. You're down. There's nothing funny about this. And if you're laughing about the call, that's inappropriate because, again, you're down 30-some. Anyways, that's my 2 cents. She's a really good player, but I thought that was inappropriate. If I'm her coach, I'm not happy about that.
Right, and kudos to her. I think after the game, I think they showed the handshake line, and Caitlin just kind of said, "Yep, understood. It's okay, no issue."
Yeah.
But if it were last year, if the game were closer, I could envision Caitlin kind of saying like, "What the heck are you doing?"
Yeah. And
being like, and it would have been like Monica, like, get out of here. Right. Get back to the line. But yeah, if they can, if Gabby can keep on this 3-point shooting streak that she's basically been on, how do you defend? How do you defend the Hawks? Because you're not going to be able to double Zanano. You can't double Clark.
I think you can. Here's one thing.
Pick your poison.
Here's one thing you can do. You can try to get Zanano in foul trouble, and you can try to get Clark in foul trouble. But that's if you're putting all your hopes on those two things happening, probably not. Your hopes are going to die pretty quickly. Because for the most part, Caitlin stays out of foul trouble. And that's good news. So yeah, I mean, they're tough to, if those girls are hitting threes, if Martin is hitting threes, if obviously Clark's going to hit hers, but if Gabby Marshall's hitting threes, and I mean, let's not forget about Warnock. She didn't do. I mean, what were her final numbers? She had 0 points today. 0 points, 0-1 from the field. And again, you'll have to fill me in. She only played 17 minutes, Zach. I missed basically the whole first half. I don't know if she getting foul trouble. Is that what happened? Looks like she had just one foul. So no, I mean, she wasn't in foul trouble.
Yeah, she's one of those players, I think, who doesn't really care if she scores or not. She's had a harder time this year, I think, too, driving. She seems like whenever she drives to the hole, it's kind of Actually, she was 1 for 5 with 4 points.
Yeah, I'm sorry. 4 points. I was looking at first half stats. She did play 34. I don't know what I was looking at. 17 minutes didn't sound right, but again, I wasn't able to watch most of the first half. So she did play 34 minutes, just 4 points, 0 of 2 from 3, 1 of 5 from the field. So she didn't have her best game. She did get 11 boards, but if she starts knocking down shots, boy, yeah, it is pick your poison.
Yeah, and that first half was just a offensive clinic. I mean, anything that Iowa wanted to do outside of the first 2 minutes which both teams were turning the ball over, outside of those first 2 minutes, it was just anything they wanted to do, they did.
Yeah.
It didn't matter what Ohio State did. And, Caitlin was on fire. Then it was just, okay, now we'll just feed Sonato. They can't guard her. And I think that's one thing Lisa also does. If she notices that no big can get on Zanano, it's feed the beast.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
And rightfully so.
Yeah, I'll be very excited. Hopefully I kind of agree with you. I doubt they might get to that one line, maybe, but can't argue with the 2 seed. Cannot argue with home court. Carver will definitely be rocking.
It will be, and great, because you hate to think that today's game in Carver was the last time we see one of these teams playing at home. So we'll get that taste out of our mouth. Hopefully we get the men's taste out of our mouth on probably Thursday, hopefully not till Friday. And then the women bounce back in a couple of weeks. Or not bounce back, but bounce the Hawkeye fans back into it in a couple of weeks.
Right. And I think I saw something. I think today they set another attendance record at the Target Center for attendance record for a Big Ten women's tournament game.
Yeah, not surprised at all.
Basically, Carver North.
Absolutely.
So, again, great Big Ten champs. Cannot wait until 2 weeks when the NCAA tournament is going to be here in Iowa City. Have a great evening, Corey. Thanks for the call.
Thank you, Zach. Appreciate the call, sir. Appreciate Zach calling our Iowa Smokehouse call-in line. And DC Glaza says, McMahon's a young freshman. In fairness to her, her smiling and laughing could have just been an involuntary response to the anxiety and pressure she was feeling. That's fair. That's fair. I don't have any issue with that side of it. Let's go back to our Iowa Smokehouse call-in line. Who's on the line? Hey, Roger. How are you?
Doing great, Corey. How about yourself?
I'm doing good after that one. Not so good after the men's game, but good after the women's.
Well, that was a clinic.
Yes, it was. And by the way, before you go on, I didn't want to forget giving this stat. I talked about field goal percentage earlier. Here are the final field goal percentages for the first half. Iowa shot 72.4% from the field in the first half, 63% from three, 88% from the free throw line. Go ahead, Roger.
Well, like I said, they came out. I guess both teams kind of came out and a little hungover from yesterday's tough games. I think they turned the ball over like the first 4 or 5 times Iowa had it, and that's the thing that could get them in trouble against a really good team.
Absolutely could. And I mentioned turnovers at the outset. Hard to complain about anything when you win by this much, but I mean, there are ways for Iowa to lose. And I mean, heck, they got blown out by Maryland a few weeks ago. So this team is not the best defensively. If we're just going to be real, they're not the best defensively. They have here late in the season had a couple games where they've turned the ball over way too much. And they had a couple games earlier in the season where they did that as well. So there are ways for this team. This team is not they're not incredibly athletic. They're not going to be able to survive off their great athletes like a team like South Carolina and UConn, like they do year after year. So they're not invincible, obviously. I think they're better than they were a year ago when they lost to Creighton. And they're playing their best basketball right now, which is what you want.
Yeah, I know people say like Clark doesn't play good enough defense, but when I look at what she does, she has to do the whole game. They generally put her in a situation where she can help, but I want Iowa fans to take this vision of Caitlin Clark on the bench in the first quarter with 2 fouls. When she goes out of the game, the offense just goes to a grinding halt.
Yeah. Well, and that could be the big storyline when we hit. There's no question you're going to give up some defensively, but it's not even close to what you're getting offensively from Clark. But that you just hit the nail on the head. That is probably where Iowa. What happens if they lose at some point in the tournament? It's going to be because something happened with Clark. You hope it's not an injury. You hope it's not foul trouble, but those things are possible.
But the thing that she does do a lot better than she did last year, she keeps her hands up and she keeps them back, but she slides her feet and she tends to take her offensive player to a baseline or someplace where there's some help. And she gets a lot of stops on defense with her feet. Now, granted, she's not playing the number one player, but she's getting much better at sliding her feet and cutting her offensive player off and without fouling.
I don't think I agree with you. I don't think she's been a big liability on the defensive end. I've commented in the past, Roger, you've heard me comment on the women's struggle on the defensive end. I don't think Clark is a great defender by any means, but I don't think she's the worst defender on the team. And I think she's held her own. Like I said, I think part of that is just her toughness and her desire to play defense, her willingness to play defense. I do think she's been better. And it's kind of like how I felt about Jordan Bohannon as his career wound down. I thought he put more effort in on the defensive end. You're not going to necessarily be a great defender if you lack certain things physically. I mean, Jordan Bohannon and Caitlin Clark are not the most athletic people in the world as it relates to Big Ten athletes, but a desire to be great, a great work ethic, good fundamentals, all those things can make up for that. And I think Clark is playing good enough defense right now where she's not a liability. And boy, when she's giving you what she's giving you on offense, that's all you need.
Yeah, I get concerned when I see big athletic guards come in, and we got Gabby and Molly trying to guard. Those guards quickly figure out they can take them down the lane. And I know Maryland did that, and Indiana did that. And I saw where Lisa Bluter had to pull Molly out of a couple of games pretty quick because she just physically wasn't big enough to handle any of the guards.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I think, I mean, I know that the argument has been made, and I'm not going to go on a rant about it. I think Gabby's lack of size and lack of quickness laterally against really good guards is going to be a problem, or could be a problem as well. However, again, they don't have to be, I want to make that clear, they don't have to be great on that end. They are so good offensively that I don't know what the numbers say about teams making the Final Four. I know that the numbers have been brought up. The Ken Pom numbers for the men have been brought up, that you have to be within a certain threshold, or at least history tells you have to be within a certain ranking in offensive efficiency, or defensive efficiency rather, to make a Final Four. I don't know if those numbers are out there for the women. They probably are. But the bottom line is they are so good offensively, and they've got such a generational player in Caitlin Clark that they can be average on defense, and that's good enough.
Well, I mean, Caitlin, she's out there just conducting. And, I mean, that pass she made to Stalky to end the quarter, you made it, I think it was the first half, you may not have saw it. She knew where that ball was going to go from the time it left her hands and she got it back. I mean, it was just a beautiful play. And she sees things that no one else sees. And she's like 10 steps ahead of everybody.
She's fun to watch, and she's got you're absolutely right. She's a great shooter, great ball handler, but she's also a great passer, and those don't come around very often.
No, I don't know anybody else that could have made all those lobs are just perfect. And Monica Sonato does a great job of pinning her person, not releasing until the ball's over her head. But those passes are from the top, the key, and further, and it's something to watch.
I absolutely agree. Angles, understanding of angles. She's and in response to DC Glazer, what makes you think Caitlin isn't the most athletic? The comparison to Bohannon in that respect is flat out wrong, in my opinion. Well, I mean, Roger, do you think Caitlin Clark is an athletic phenom?
I don't think she's athletic phenom. I think she combines hard work, extremely good. She's very skilled, and she thinks ahead. Her brain is like 10 steps ahead of everybody else.
Yeah, I mean, Luca Garza is not incredibly athletic by any means. And that's part of the reason why people like Aaliyah Boston and Diamond Miller are better pro prospects than Caitlin Clark. That's nothing against Caitlin. I'm not ripping her for that. I'm just saying you're right. You make up for that with hard work and developing your craft, your skill. So anyways, go on, Roger. I didn't mean to.
I just thought this, I mean, in Ohio, the two Ohio State players, when Clark hit those deep threes from each side, one off the bench side, one in front of the bench side, the Ohio State players just like put their hands almost on their hips and look back at their coach like, what am I missing here? I mean, she just broke their spirit by hitting those 2 threes there in the first half. They had their hands, they just had their hands up. They couldn't, they like, what the heck's going on?
It's demoralizing. Especially, I mean, she's hitting shots from 30 feet. It's hard to, I mean, how do you defend? You really don't defend it, right? You really don't defend it.
No, you don't. Yeah, I think she did a good job again today. She stayed in the middle of the floor, stayed off the sidelines, and that gave her the ability to draw with other defenders. And that leaves when she stays just off the sides of the free throw lines, and she penetrates, those wings are wide open. And the key to them making a run is for the Warnock, Marshall, and Hudson, Kate Martin to be able to hit those threes, because there's nothing you can't defend all 5 people. Not when one of them takes at least two people to guard and the other one takes a person and a half.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. The combination of assets that this team has, and I think Hannah Stolke, I know she doesn't play a ton of minutes, but her athleticism and what she gives you on the glass, especially, this team has really committed itself to rebounding well. And for the game, trying to find these stats for, let's see, Stolke for the game. Let me pull up. For the game, Stolke was just 6 points, 11 minutes, and 4 boards. But I mean, 4 boards in 6 minutes. That's what she in 11 minutes. That's what she gives you. She gives you high energy. She gives you rebounding, and people like that. Those are the types of players that can make a difference in a close game, in a game where maybe your shooters are struggling. You have a player who's willing to make the hustle plays, and she gives you something that you don't already have. So you're right. A lethal combination with everybody that this team has, and they can stay healthy. And certainly, having the home court those first 2 rounds will help. This team can make a deep run.
When people complain that Caitlin shoots too much, the only time she shoots that much is when her other players aren't hitting, and she feels she has to take the game over. I mean, she didn't shoot very much today. She still scored 30 points.
Yeah. 17 shots, 30 points on 17 shots is impressive.
And as far as player of the year, I mean, she's went up almost every category statistically. She's got the ball in her hands all the time. I mean, Leah Boston's a good player, but Leah Boston doesn't have the responsibility that Caitlin Clark has to. I mean, if Clark's not on the court, I was in deep trouble.
Yeah. Yeah, no, she's no question the most valuable player to any team. Is she the best player? That can be a debate. I still think she's the best player too, but she's most certainly the most important player to her team.
Well, I still think she's the best player in the country because she does it so many ways.
I agree.
She does it. I mean, she got 10 rebounds today. How many assists? 18 or something ridiculous,
17.
And still scored 30 points.
Yeah.
I mean, who does that?
Caitlin Clark.
And the thing that's got me, the one thing that has me a little bit worried, and going into the thing is just the refereeing in the women's game. I think leaves some to be desired. And if they get I worry that Iowa's going to run into a set of refs that are going to allow them to just literally pound them. And I don't know if Iowa is capable of taking a more physical pounding they have been. I mean, teams like South Carolina, they beat you into submission. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with South Carolina. I'm just saying that the referees let it get out of hand. That's really going to hurt Iowa.
That's fair to say. But again, Roger, my one rebuttal on that is I think Iowa has handled those physical games relatively well this year. There have been games that they haven't been perfect. They've lost some games. But again, I go back to Maryland the other night. I go to Purdue. That was a physical game. And South Carolina, I mean, that is an outlier, right? They are by far the most dominant team in the country. So it's likely that Iowa won't have to face them until, well, they won't. They won't have to face them until at least the Elite Eight. You hope that they're not in that section of the Elite. Probably won't be in their section in the Elite Eight. If they're a 2 seed, they're probably going to be in a different section. So they probably won't face them until at least the Final Four.
That I understand that they can do that, but if they have an off shooting night at the same time, that's what you combine 2 of those things together, and that's what ends teams runs. And this team's really good, and I want to see them go a long way.
Absolutely,
so,
Roger.
But it was sure a fun one to watch.
Absolutely. Appreciate you calling, sir. And we hope to hear from you. We'll have post-game coverage for the NCAA tournament as well.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right. Appreciate everybody being here. Let me find the comment here from Jason. He says, Corey, do you think having almost 2 weeks off before NCAAs is beneficial or does it hurt? I don't like that, but it is what it is. Maybe some rests will do them well, but I think you run more of a risk of coming in rusty, but most teams are doing that, and we'll see what happens. At least Iowa made it through the entire Big Ten tournament, won it. D-Rock Irish, do you think former Notre Dame basketball coach in McCaffrey is interested in head coaching position in South Bend? I've talked about this, D-Rock Irish. I don't think so. Would I rule it out? No, because I think it might be his dream job, but he is getting older. He's got one final kid in high school. He's got Patrick still dealing with some health issues. He's still in college. I think they want to be close to the University of Iowa because of what they've helped the McCaffrey family with, but never say never, but I would say no at this point. Erica, look at her. Erica coming out for basketball. Good to see you, Erica. Brandon says, if Iowa loses in the NCAA tournament, it will come down to the usual issues, rebounding and defense. Well, you bring up the Creighton game, Brandon. And yes, they weren't great defensively in that game. But I'll remind you that Creighton shot 36% from the field. They shot 29% from three and shot 60% from the free throw line. They scored 64 points and won. Now, Iowa shot 35.7% from the field, 23% from three, 88% from the free throw line, made 7 free throws to Creighton's 6. My point is, Iowa lost that game not necessarily because of their defense, but because of rebounding. 52-37. So you're right on one side of that. 52-37, the discrepancy there. And yes, Iowa struggled from behind the arc, but so did Creighton in some respect. So I think, first of all, I think Iowa's a better rebounding team this year, and I don't see Iowa shooting that low. I mean, it's always possible to have an off night, but boy, everybody's clicking like they are now. It's hard to believe that all of these ladies are going to shoot poorly on any given night. But again, it is possible. Iowa, and the men and the women, they lost in the NCAA tournament last year, not because of the defense necessarily, but because their offenses had off nights, and you could argue the defense wasn't quite good enough to make up for really poor offensive performances. Lemansky, appreciate the super chat, Lemansky. He says, the national narrative the Lady Hawks have been creating is wonderful the last several years. This team will be cherished for years. This team has chemistry to go deep in the tournament. Appreciate that, Lemansky. And a reminder to everybody, folks, been here for the last hour. One final call on, one final chance to make a call here. If you want to call the show, the numbers on the bottom of the screen are Iowa Smokehouse call-in line, 515-635-1601. That's 515-635-1601. There's a cat in our window. There's a cat in the window outside the window. And I'm on the second story. All right, let's go to DC Glaza. No, we already addressed this comment. And DC Glaza, no, I don't think you're being antagonistic. I'm just rebuttaling. I have no problem with your opinion. And I think Caitlin Clark is tremendous, no question about it. Ryan says, where will Clark get drafted once she's done? She's a box office attraction. It will be interesting. I have no idea as it relates to mock drafts, but she will get drafted, because how do you not draft someone with her three-point prowess, her passing ability, and what she's going to give your franchise as it relates to putting butts in seats? Kelly, thank you for the super chat, Kelly. Bring on the NCAA tournament. Absolutely. Will be fun. Will be fun to watch the men here in the Big Ten tournament. I don't think the sky is falling on the men. I know that's a discussion for a different day, but I don't think the sky is falling. Appreciate your positivity, Kelly. Tyler, Hawk fans need to show up on the neutral site NCAA games. They clearly feed off our energy. Absolutely. The Iowa men had a chance to end up in Des Moines. I don't know exactly the logistics of that. That'd be a better question for Mike DeCourcy or Tim Kruger. We're going to try to have a bracket show here in the coming days. But boy, it would have been great to be in Des Moines. But boy, you're absolutely right. What Iowa, the women have done with that crowd up there in Minneapolis is impressive. Matt says the Rutgers Northwestern men's game is currently delayed due to smoke. The scoreboard is on fire and smoke is coming from it. Is this legitimate? Okay, I guess that's legitimate. I don't have that in front. I don't have the game going in front of me, but boy, I hope that game gets going. They need to play that game. It's an important one. Again, final call on the Iowa Smokehouse call-in line. The number 515-635-1601. 515-635-1601. Again, want to thank Iowa Smokehouse and their awesome products. If you want a better tasting snack and a better quality snack for game day or any event, or maybe just everyday snacking, put in your lunch pail to snack on, visit iowasmokehouse.com. iowasmokehouse.com. They offer a full lineup sure to satisfy you and your family's snacking needs, whether it's their thick and tender cuts of beef jerky, Their flavorful meat sticks are delicious steak bites. They've even got ketchup and barbecue sauce, these different flavors. You will never need to look anywhere else for such snacks. Tasting is believing with Iowa Smokehouse. Go to www.iowasmokehouse.com. Use that code Hawkeye for 15% off. And how about celebrating the Iowa Big Ten Championship, the Iowa Women's Big Ten Tournament Championship with an order, a $50 or more order gets free shipping courtesy of Iowa Smokehouse and this show from the Hawkeye of the Storm. Appreciate Iowa Smokehouse supporting it and for you all supporting it as well. Let's see here. I don't see anybody on the call line. Shane says that they're checking the scoreboard at halftime. Northwestern leading 22-14 right now over Rutgers. Again, the Hawkeye men need Rutgers to win. And Shane says they are playing. So we'll see what happens. And Kelly, great question. Did I try the bacon ketchup yet? I just tried the salsa a couple of days ago, and man alive, it is good. It's a cilantro salsa. It's awesome. I'll have to show it on camera here at some point. Have not yet busted open the bacon ketchup, but one of the many great products from Iowa Smokehouse. All right, a couple of reminders, folks, before I go. You can follow me on Instagram and Twitter at From the Hawkeye. That's at From the Hawkeye on both Instagram and Twitter. As you can see from the bottom ticker, you can donate to the channel by means of Super Chat. We appreciate the Super Chats that have been thrown our way this evening. And also, you can donate by means of PayPal, Cash App, Venmo. If you want to donate, make a one-time donation via credit card, you can click on the PayPal link, and there's a way to do that through PayPal. Also, you can share the show on social media. It's another way you can support the work being done here from the Hawkeye of the Storm. If you're interested in sponsoring any of our post-season coverage, including Iowa Postgame with Coach Gary Close or the postgame shows for the women, email me at fromtheeyeofthestorm@outlook.com. That's from the eye of the storm at outlook.com. You can also shop Amazon with us. Click the link in the description to shop on our store, and it supports us. A small portion of the proceeds when you purchase Amazon products goes to us here from the Hawkeye of the Storm. And speaking of from the Hawkeye of the Storm, FT Hots merchandise available right now via the link in the description below. Original merchandise, clothing, mugs, coffee cups, all kinds of different stuff. Click our Spreadshirt link in the description below. Let's go to our last caller of the evening. Thank you for calling Iowa Postgame here from the Hawkeye of the Storm, who's on our Iowa Smokehouse call-in line.
Hey, Corey, it's John. How are you?
John, how are you, sir?
I'm good. I was at the Nebraska game today, so
I was too. It's glad we at least can recap a win.
Do you think, is there another conference? You look at Indiana, Maryland, and Iowa. Is there another conference that the top 3 or 4 teams are as good as the Big Ten?
It's a good question. Right now, probably not. I mean, I certainly think the SEC has had its moments, but as far as right now is concerned, probably not. LSU and South Carolina represent that conference pretty well. I'll say that. And I think top to bottom, the Big Ten is probably the best. Yeah, I think that's fair.
Okay. One thing that frustrates me, and I've probably said this to you before, is how I watched the Lisa Bluter's radio show yesterday, the pregame, and she said we need to defend the 3-point line better, but yet they're still 10 feet off the people getting open 3-point shots yesterday in the game. And as far as the men go, they just don't seem to work on their weaknesses, and that's what just drives me nuts. So,
yeah, I understand, especially for the men. The lack of perimeter defense was a big problem today. That's a fair point, and like I've said before, John, I think the women can overcome it because I think they're better offensively, relatively speaking, relative to their sport. They're better on offense than the men are. They're more consistent. They're more they've got more firepower. Although the men, when they're at their best, are almost impossible to beat too. But there's not as big of a gap there, and I don't know how much time is devoted to defense and specific drills for the men or the women, frankly. But I understand your frustrations, and if the men are going to win, they have to play better defense than they did today. They regardless. I mean, they played pretty well offensively, made a bunch of threes, but it doesn't matter if you can't defend anybody and you're giving up 14 threes to Nebraska. That's just unacceptable.
How can Nebraska? I've watched them a couple of times this year, and the games I've watched, they hit shots like that all game long. How could they be that bad but still be that good as shooters? I don't.
They're good. I mean, they're good. They've won a lot of games here late, and it's amazing because again, Hoiberg was up against a wall, and they have just responded, and they've beaten teams. I mean, I think we need to understand, even though that's probably a quad 3 loss, Nebraska's playing really good basketball right now. And let's remember, John, they are in the conference. Nebraska is now, let's see, 9-11 in the conference. That's a pretty darn good record in this league when you talk about the balance, and they're not far off from being tied with Iowa. Iowa's in the conference. Iowa's 11-9. They're 2 games up on Nebraska. Nebraska's not going to make the big dance. They will be in the NIT. I'm confident of that, and they deserve to be in the NIT. They've got just 2 losses more than Nebraska or than Wisconsin, same amount of wins, and 1 more conference win so far than Wisconsin. They are playing as well as they have under Hoiberg. There's no way you let him go now that he's starting to gain some traction there. And if you don't defend them well from the perimeter, they'll burn you. Tominaga's really good. Griesel's really good. So you reap what you sow.
How can West Virginia? I seen somewhere where it said West Virginia was the last 4 in. How could they ever make the NCAA tournament? They're like 17-11 and 6-11 in their conference.
The committee, I think we're assuming the committee has a lot of respect for that conference. The Big 12 is really good. There's no question about it. They are really good. And West Virginia, they've got good wins in the conference. No question about it. They beat Iowa State the other day. But you're right. It's a weird year. There was talk for a while about 9 of the 10 teams in the Big 12 making the tournament. That is insane. Texas Tech was at one time considered to be the worst team in the Big 12, and they were on the bubble a week ago. So it is interesting. You could argue that maybe some of those Group of 5 schools deserve more, or Group of 5 conferences deserve more teams accepted into the tournament. They deserve more representation, but until that happens, you're going to see a lot of teams from the best conferences make it.
It'd be purely speculation, but I've often wondered if Joe Toussaint regrets leaving Iowa.
Well, I don't think so. I mean, I don't know what he's averaging, but his averages are better than he's ever had at Iowa. And I don't know what he, would Iowa have been a lot better with him this year? Maybe. I mean, maybe the Wisconsin loss doesn't happen because they were down Ulis in that game, so maybe Toussaint plays and they're a lot better. But I think he fits into what Bob Huggins wants more than what Fran wants.
Well, supposedly, and I don't know that this is true, but after last season, he went into Fran and said, "I want guaranteed 30 minutes a game," and Fran said, "We don't guarantee minutes," So
no doubt that's probably true. I don't know if he did that, but if he did, I don't blame Fran for saying that. You can't guarantee a guy a certain amount of minutes. That's just not how it works.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks, Corey.
Thanks, John. Appreciate the call, sir. Shane giving us an update. Halftime, 21-25. Rutgers Northwestern in a battle. Hawkeyes need the Rutgers Scarlet Knights to win. The men do, for them to have a chance at a double bye. The Iowa women are Big Ten champions. Congratulations to Lisa Bluter, Caitlin Clark, and company with a 105-72 dominant victory over the Ohio State Buckeyes up at the Target Center in Minneapolis. As a reminder, I'll have coverage leading up to the Iowa men's Big Ten tournament, including another episode of Brada's Branded Thoughts. We'll try to sneak a Hawkeye hangout in here this week as well. Bracketology information, all kinds of stuff, Iowa football coverage, all of it right here. Be subscribed, turn notifications on, donate to the show, support our sponsors. All those things help as we continue our project here from the Hawkeye of the Storm. Appreciate you being a part of the 2 shows today and our long day of coverage here from the Hawkeye of the Storm, and we will talk to you next time.